The Strengthening Communities podcast is brought to you by Access Services. Join us as we talk with Mike Nelson from Creating Increased Connections and Kristen Harootunian from Minding Your Mind.
Mike, you've been doing a lot of training and a lot of support groups. You want to just sort of talk a little bit about what you've been doing?
Well, I'm a curriculum creator and group facilitator for CIC. And our role for Montgomery County, CIC role is develop creative, innovative trainings, workshops, and groups. I work with a team of people who are, like, it's easy to do your best, Mark, when you're around people who do their best.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we all doing our best together. So,
yeah.
So, and we all passionate people, and we all come from that lived experience. I experienced homelessness, so I know what that world can be about. I do a group called Live Another Day, and it's an alternative to suicide group. But, I wanted to change the name and not really, let's take suicide out of it altogether and just call it Live Another Day, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think language is so important, but that's a podcast for another time. And, and I do that group not because I'm wise, it's because I know what it's like to think about, consider, and contemplating some self-harm, right? So that's kind of, a simple guy trying to support people and encourage people. And as I'm doing it, I find myself finding the help that I need. So that's kind of my story there.
I think one of the big parts of this podcast that we're trying to do is to shift an understanding of a lot of these topical areas: mental health, suicide, recovery from substance use, what it means to live in the community with a disability, to shift a mindset to how do we look at all of these topics through a community lens. How do people belong in the community? How do people contribute in the community? And how we're a better community when everybody is involved and doing their best. So I think what you were saying about language and the words that we use to describe these things and talk about them is really important. The other thing that struck me right off the bat is, you said, I'm not doing this because I'm wise, but because I have lived experience. And one of the things I like to say is I ask the question, where does wisdom lie? And oftentimes wisdom lies the most with the people who've lived through something. And sometimes we overlook that the wisdom, not only the knowledge, but the wisdom that comes with lived experience. So I appreciate you just sort of talking through that. Mike McKenna, we've been talking about the work that you guys do with TIP and youth, and we were talking. We've talked in past episodes about how it's important for people to have the opportunity to share. Mike was talking about lived experience and the importance of that, and even for youth, it's easy to get sort of labeled or get stuck in a space and be the recipient of stuff. It's people are serving you or people are trying to help you, but just what happens when it's a reciprocal experience where people start seeing themselves as assets.
Yeah, and it's great to help people to create those opportunities for people. And I think one of the things I enjoy most about TIP is that it almost is like a healing process by shifting the focus of like others supporting me to helping me support myself and those around me in the context in which I exist. So it's instead of just seeing yourself as a recipient of this support. And that's why I think like when we talk about language, it is kind of important because we're talking about including everyone. And this is the theme of the podcast, is inclusion, belonging. So if we have a bunch of folks who have different lived experiences from different walks of life, how do we help them through that lived experience share with other people what they've learned and how others can learn from that level of expertise that they carry around? And I think that's a really cool opportunity we have, not just in TIP, but in a lot of different areas here at Access and in the community. I know when we talked on the phone, I don't know if this was earlier this week or last week, with the three of us got together on a phone call and talked through some of the creative opportunities that we're trying to find to get in front of people, and through that lens of lived experience kind of open some doors and open some opportunities for people to share more.
Mike Nelson, you were talking about the groups that you help facilitate, that you help support, and I think maybe talk a little bit about for maybe somebody coming into that group. It's a person who maybe has had an experience, a lived experience with a mental health struggle, or something along those lines, or like you described, sometimes it's an experience with homelessness. So when I come into that group as a person with a lived experience, I might not be used to viewing myself as having a story, or a story that might have value to somebody else. So what do you see happen when you facilitate some of those groups and you invite people into a community that wants to share and listen?
I think one of the things that we do that's uniquely our own is that when we invite people to our group, because oftentimes they've been being told things like, go to the group, you can get something out of it, it can help you, and that's good information. But when they come to our group, what we encourage them is that you already have something to give to the group. And that's a message that they seldom hear. Like, what I've been through, those experiences can benefit someone else. And sitting next to the right certified peer specialists, certified recovery specialists, therapists, counselors, we can help that come out. The other thing is, it's often said that, we can empower these individuals to be able to see their true potential. I think what I can do is help that person see the power they already possess. And so this is the mental shift that we try to share with people. And that's why I'm not the only facilitator of our group. We rotate and allow different people to take turns facilitating. Now, yeah, we're there, we monitor it, we try to make sure nothing egregious happens during that facilitation process, right? I'm trained to watch out for those things, but want people to get the experience that you too can sit in these seats, right? Last thing I'm gonna say, one thing happened is that we were asking people if they want to facilitate. If they accept it, it's fine. If they don't accept it, it's fine. So you want to facilitate today? No, okay, that's fine. I'll do it. We're just asking, just generally, no demands. And normally people would take turns to do it. But we had this one person who never raised his hand. And I would ask him from time to time, and people would giggle because everybody knows he's going to say no. And then 10 months in the group, right? I didn't even ask him. I just asked, did anyone want to facilitate? And his hand went up. The group went into pandemonium. Everybody screaming and clapping. Because we knew it really wasn't about facilitating. We knew it really wasn't about facilitating, right? He raised his hand. And he said, I would like to do it. And that was just a proud moment. So
I think what you're saying, Mike, really goes along the lines of what we're trying to sort of dialogue through. Like people view themselves as having something wrong with them or something that needs to get fixed. And you're describing that you already have something to offer just by who you are and what you've experienced. And the process is really drawing that out of people, asking them if they're going to asking them if they want to facilitate a group, and waiting for 10 months until they finally say, yeah, I'm going to give that a shot. So that's a really good example of that.
It was a really great story, because that's a great demonstration of the power of showing up, and like showing up for 10 months. Like, I'm not ready, but I'm here. I'm in the room, and you showing up for him until he's ready, until I'm at a place where I'm going to facilitate a group. And I'm not going to put the pressure on you. And you can share and find an opportunity when you're ready for it. I think that's really cool, because sometimes it can look like I don't see this person better tomorrow. Like they weren't better than they were yesterday, and they're not getting better next week. It's like finding the opportunities to spot people making a little bit of progress, normalizing that you're going to fall back a little bit. Like, hey, we might take 4 steps forward, 1 or 2 steps back, then another 3 steps back, 1. But if you keep showing up, finding those small victories, and just normalizing that success and progress doesn't always look a certain way. Like, recovery and belonging doesn't always look like a straight path from 1 to 10. And I think that's finding that, like, those of us who have been through recovery can explain to other people that it doesn't always look like a one-size-fits-all plan. It looks different for everybody.
You're bringing up a really good point too. Like the 1 step forward and 2 steps back. That's how we all do life, actually. And so when we're normalizing that, we're really normalizing this is the way life happens, not just the way recovery happens or the way somebody sort of manages. This is the way we're all sort of doing life, which sort of leads me to the next thing. When we want to move past this idea of if you struggle with a mental health issue, then you just need to be treated or you need to try to be better. But you're learning and you're equipping. Your experience is giving you something that you have to offer. And it's not just offering to other people who have a similar experience or could benefit in their own recovery from what lessons you've learned and can share. But really, at the end of the day, it's a benefit to everybody in the community. And our overarching idea here is that when the community is at its best, it's because it includes everybody who has something to offer to the community itself. And when we fail to do that as a community, we actually diminish who we are as a group of people. And so what you were saying, both of you, Mikes, is sort of leading me to another story. Is back in the pandemic, I was fortunate to be part of to be invited in as part of a group of people who hear voices, and they're living with that thing in their life. And so we were on Zoom calls pretty regularly. We were planning some events that we were going to do on Zoom because of the lockdown. It had taken a lot of energy out of us collectively, and we thought maybe it would be over early, and then it turned out it wasn't, and now it seemed to be going on for a while. And so everybody universally was feeling kind of down, and we were talking about that in this Zoom meeting, and then somebody said, and I was able to observe this dawning on the group, because somebody said, the things that I used to get through the pandemic are the same things I do to get through the 90s, the whole decade of the 90s. This is just a new day, a wrinkle in a struggle, but I know how to get through hard times because I've experienced that. And watching the group realize that they had sort of this superpower of knowing how to get through hard times because they had experienced it and lived through it, and to the point of the metaphor, had worked out all those muscles to be able to do that. And they realized that they had something to offer not only to each other, but they had something to offer to the community at large, the rest of us that were out there and struggling. So I want us to talk about how do we shift from the idea that people can do well in spite of what they've experienced or the hardship that they've faced, but that people can do well and have something to offer precisely because of the experience that they've had. So I'm just wondering, how do you guys reflect on that idea?
Yeah, and that brings up a question for you, Mike, that I have is how do you shift clearly you're a resilient guy, you're a resilient person, but how and what were the systems you used to be able to use your own resilience and your own process to help others learn how to harness that themselves? How did you come across that path, and what were the kind of the concepts you used to be able to do that?
Again, I'm no expert in this, right? This is just my journey, and I just felt like I wanted to be the support that I never received. Let me just 3 things really quick. My focus has always been build a community of connection, non-judgmental, and care, right? And I believe that breeds safety, and with community and safety, we can have intimacy, right? People really sharing their hearts, right? I believe before I can tell Mark about Mark, let me first tell Mark about Mike, right? I think starting there. And I think that I never felt as close to my peers as when it was the pandemic, right? I thought, I really felt that we were all one and the same. I'm talking about program directors, managers, supervisors. I don't care what station in life you were in. I don't care what positions you held. Everybody was going through it. And I went without human contact, Mike, for 43 days. I lived alone. My family's in another county. I'm in an apartment by myself. And I leaned on my peers, those that were in my group, to encourage me, right? Because one of them said to me, he says, Mike, you need to go to the park and hug a tree because a tree is a living thing. And we all laughed in the group. But 2 days later, I was in the park hugging trees. 2 days later. So if you drove past, Mike, and you see somebody hugging trees, that was just me. That was just me, okay? It wasn't a big thing.
Hey, I live non-judgmental. No judgment here. I might try it now.
You're not judgmental, right? Yeah. Listen, I know people are yearning for connection, right? One of the greatest desires of human nature is the need to feel appreciated. There's a need for positive regard, right? Respect what I've been through, care about me. And I know there's a desire for interpersonal relationships, right? And I think that if I can just hold true to these things and be my authentic self, right, and build that kind of community, we can all get through some stuff together. Lastly, I'll just simply say this. I believe that when people get better and moving forward, it's not always about the absence of illness. I think it's really about the awakening of a purpose. The illness can still be there, but purpose override the illness. I'm still going through some stuff, but I feel like I got a purpose. Right? So I think that's what's helpful. So I think I gave you the long version, Mike.
No, that was really good. And
Yeah.
that line about, we're finding purpose. We're not taking away something that we don't like as much as we are finding a purpose, which gives us the motivation or the desire to move forward and figure out how to live with those things. And I think that's, when we talk about reimagining recovery, I think that's you've gotten to an essence of it, that lots of times people in the public think of recovery as getting past something or getting rid of something or getting, moving to where you don't have these things in your life that you don't want so much. And really recovery is about much bigger things, which are connecting with people, the power of relationships, and the power of finding value and purpose. So I think this is a lot of what we're trying to get to when we say, how do we reimagine what recovery looks like and how it benefits not only the people going through it and the people around them, but as a community of all of us as well.
Well, I think about a conversation I had with one of our family support specialists with the Bucks Life program last week, and talking about how work and coming and supporting families, sometimes in a really intense environment, is where she comes to find her peace, because she finds purpose in the work. She finds connection. She finds community. And although to an external perspective, you'd be like, wow, the last thing you need is to come into work and have to deal with that situation going on. She's like, I can't wait to get in here, because this is where I find some drive. I always mention 4 things, and I jotted them down again because we talk about it internally as programs. Like, what do you want to provide your staff with? Like, what are 4 things you need your team to have in order to function really well? And we're talking about it today as the 4 things you just need as a person to find some fulfillment. So those things I mention all the time are purpose, we talked about today, connection, development, and the feeling of being valued. Like, do I have purpose in what I do, how I carry myself? Do I feel connected, not just to the people in the community around me, but do I feel connection to the purpose? Do I have a sense of development? Like, I'm on a track, I'm improving, I'm getting better at something, or I'm helping other people improve. And do I have a feeling of being valued, like by my community members? And that I think that feeling of being valued is also belonging. Like, and because I'm connected to my community, do I feel a sense of belonging? And we talk about that from a team perspective. Like, those are important things to have. But they're things like, if you can check those 4 boxes in life, like, you're on the right track. That's pretty good. It's like, how do you find those as a person seeking them, but also as a community member not seeking them? How do you help provide those to other people? Like, how do you and that's kind of the difficult thing that we're talking about, how to help people do that. Yeah.
Just love what you said, Mike. Which tells me, like, you are a thinking program. Your staff is thinking through how is the best way we can be better to be better for others. And I just love that approach of what you said. My point is that sometimes it's not the individual that's ill. Sometimes it's the program. So when I hear programs that think through, right, and look at themselves to see how they can look at, I just love that. And when Mike said that, it just made my heart leap. You know what I mean? Because that's the kind of people we need.
It brings up another thing that we were talking about on our phone call last week, which is the creation of spaces that are in the community for just people to enjoy because they share an affinity for something. You know, I heard the importance of connection and the importance of value and purpose, and the importance of relationship. And one of the things that I've learned about you, Mike Nelson, just because I've been around you for a while, is that you're always curious. You just want to know about a person, who they are, how they got to this point in their life, and what's important to them. We don't have a key solution for this about how should we be differently as a community, but I think it includes those things where we should all be encouraged to sort of treat each other with kindness and sort of interact with each other, knowing that at the end of the day, we're all very much similar in terms of the things that we need as humans.
Very well said, Mark. Let me just add this, that I believe, curiosity is definitely the key. I had the privilege to work in Philadelphia County prisons and jails, and also Montgomery County. And I done talked to prison social workers who say, well, Mike, you don't really want to talk to this individual. They was fighting COs and other inmates, and they very problematic. And just pull that chart, read that chart. Maybe you want to spend your energy focusing on someone else, because this person, you know, as far as housing, maybe someone else may be a better fit for what you're trying to do. I said, well, let me just see the individual anyway. And that's what I want to meet the person. And, well, he's a thug. And I hear that a lot in county jails, people being labeled as thugs. And this is what I discovered. They were not thugs. They were thugs in the sense where they were traumatized humans unable to grieve. Traumatized humans unable to grieve. This is what I was discovering. That was the thug that I was seeing, right? And once I got an opportunity to help that person unpack that, you know, I'm looking in the mirror just at another human being that was having a tough time. Yeah, so curiosity is definitely the key.
But as you're mentioning that, I think what I have found is that people tend to meet expectation. So when you walk in with an expectation to meet someone that has something to offer, they have a level of expertise in something, they have value that you see, then they'll tend to rise and meet that expectation. If they're met with the expectation that you're a thug, you don't have anything to offer, you have a problem, look at this file, then people do tend to meet that expectation. So I think important how we all show up for each other with curiosity and expectation that everybody has something to offer. We all have something we could benefit from another person. We all have something to offer and to receive as we talk about building a sense of community. And it's not going to be in our file. It's going to be in the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Mike. I think that's a great bow to put on this. I just read something around Mother Teresa, and she said if we don't have peace, it's because we forgot we belong to each other. It's because we just simply forgot we belong to each other.
And I'm wearing my #We Belong shirt for this occasion because at the end of the day, I mean, if we believe that we belong to each other, then and that's our basic orientation. And to what you just said, Mike McKenna, is our expectation is I'm glad you're here because I can't wait to see what you have to offer, and I want to help. I want to help unleash that, discover that with you. So, well, thank you, Mike, for being our guest today. It's very meaningful.
Thank you for having us.
So why don't you just explain a little bit of what Minding Your Mind is and sort of what it is you do, and then we'll get into sort of youth and the future and community and how people might be able to give back.
Yeah, so basically, Minding Your Mind, it's been around for a long time, but we're a nonprofit organization, and our mission is all about reducing stigma associated around mental health. We have like a pool of young adult speakers, and then we have a pool of clinicians, and we have different types of programs that we offer to schools and communities. So the young adult speakers are the ones that share their own experiences. And then the clinicians, they share more like stats and facts. So what parents and community members and teachers and people that look over kids, what they should look out for.
And how long have you been doing that?
I've been with this organization for 8 years. So 8.5 years. I'm surprised I still pass as like a young adult speaker. It's
right.
When do I age out, right?
It's sort of like me saying that I'm still middle-aged.
No, you're a young adult, right?
Yeah, right, yes. Well, my daughter says, Dad, it's like you're 12. So I may not be very mature as an adult, but...
I was going to say, that's the trick. That's the trick, to just stay a little immature, have enough fun that people believe, like, well, he can't be that old if he's still having a good time.
Right. He should know better by now. He can't be that old.
No.
How have you seen just being able to talk to kids so much, so many times, just so many kids? How has that process for you just grown you? Like how is that? What's the impact of doing that for kids? You mentioned even a small thing, like somebody says they want to give back, they give you a bracelet because they want to give back. But what's the impact of your giving back to the community or paying it forward to young people?
There's one presentation. We partner with an organization called the Duck Cup in Minnesota. So like I fly to Minnesota a couple times a year, and they hook us up with schools, and like typically we'll do auditorium type settings. So it's like 750, 850 kids. And what I'm ultimately seeing is there is a line of like 25, 30 kids. And I've had kids say to me, I watched you walk up on that stage and immediately thought, she's not going to be able to tell me anything that I don't already know. And then at the end, they're saying to me, like, you shared my story and I'm going to talk to the counselor about getting a therapist.
I have a colleague who has a phrase. It's called giving the gift of going second. Like, I'll go first, and then it makes it okay for you to speak, and before it was too hard, but since I went first, it's okay for you to talk. So it feels like you're giving that gift to lots of kids, lots of young people.
I love that. It's because it's true. We never had programs like these when I was growing up. Like when I was 16 years old, I thought I was the only kid that had a parent that died by suicide and addiction in the family. Like I really thought like nobody else can possibly relate to this feeling or this experience. And the amount of kids that have come up to me that have lost parents suddenly, lost family members suddenly, that have addiction in the home, mental illness in the home. Like, I mean, it's an incredibly powerful thing to be able to listen and hear them and then say, let me connect you to some resources. And the hope is that the school has the ability to at least like take care of that student from there.
And that's what, a lot of times we talk about in the young adult community. One of the biggest barriers to progress is, and what it sounds like you're giving kids is the feeling that it's possible to be heard and understood. Like, and that it's a barrier when you feel like I can make attempts, but they're not going to be productive because it's not possible for someone to see the world through the same lens that I have. It's not possible that someone will understand where I'm coming from. So it sounds like the way you share your story, it helps people get the feeling that it is possible for others to understand me and see life through the same lens.
What are the things that you see happening that maybe are more challenging, or just what are the challenges of that youth are really wrestling with that come up for you guys?
I grew up right at the cusp of everybody has an iPhone, right? So like I didn't grow up with like an iPhone in my hand. I got my first iPhone when I was like 13, maybe. Now, I have a sister who is adopted, and she is about to be 14 years old, and her generation is much different. I always hate to be like, it's those dang phones, right? But like, you get like instantaneous access to things that you shouldn't have instantaneous access to. Like, I don't even like having this much access, and my brain is fully developed. So it's like, getting like the instant access of like everything that's going on in the world, either mostly negative, but negative and positive. And then, like what you're missing out on, like, they posted this story or they made this comment or this person got more likes than I did, or they got more views on the TikTok video. Like all of that matters. And I think that type of, that like layeredness of it all, where it's like, not only do you need to fit in school, but you also need to have like a specific amount of social clout, is like a lot of pressure to put on kids. And, like their algorithm is only feeding them probably the things that they're most insecure about, because that's what's going to keep their attention. It's a completely different challenge. I mean, I've seen schools implement in these past couple years, like no phone policies. And it is literally like watching a kid withdraw from drugs. Like not having the access, because the phone does the same thing. It hits similar parts of your brain. And, by no means am I a therapist, but but I've also seen tremendous, like when there's that instantaneous hit of anxiety, over time, kids are more relieved not to have it, which, I think is incredible that schools are able to at least like control what they can control.
Yeah, I would double down on that in terms of what we're seeing. It is, it's almost like our young people are being asked to grow up and form a barometer around where they stand on every issue that is brought into their world by their device. And then also through the variety of different platforms of social media, they see everyone else around them through the rosiest lens imaginable, because everyone's only posting the best vacation they went on, the outfit they got with 10 filters on it, and then they're comparing themselves in their own life and saying, how do I measure up against these external things that the impression I get is very different than the actual reality? And then how do I go through this period of my life where I'm creating my own identity and my own tribe of people around me, and what does that look like? A lot of things that that we talk to young people about are forming healthy relationships and connection. Like, we know a lot of the theme of this podcast is belonging and connection. So how do we help people form bonds that we can help them experience something different when they're not plugged in, and we have an opportunity to have a conversation? Because most times, even if we disagree with some hot button issues on the barometer, like at a core level of who we are, we really are going to get along well together. Like, we have a lot more in common than we have different from each other. But that's not found out through surface level text, social media posts, likes, comments. It's found out through extended conversation. It's found out through getting to know who someone is on a deeper level. I also think it's interesting, we ask both youth coming into the program and prospective applicants that want to work for the TIP program what they feel are some of the major issues facing youth today. And across the board, internet access, phones, social media, content that they have access to is alarmingly at the top of that list. And there's very few places where that conversation is being had about the long-term impact of the exposure to these kind of things. Like, in the past 8 years, something that really impacted our population was the pandemic and the inability to build connection with each other. So I was going to ask if you've seen during this past 8 years, if you've seen that impact and see things trending one way or another in terms of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us became accustomed to being alone during that time. And it was sort of like, in that time, it was like, okay, I mean, for me, I'm a very social person. That was taken away. And then they say the opposite of addiction is connection. And I needed that connection. I felt like I took a huge withdrawal from the spiritual bank, so to speak. Thank goodness, I had such a strong foundation. The younger individuals, potentially, at least from what I've seen, it's okay, I'm going to be in my bubble and I'm going to be here because it's safe. Right. And it is safe to be alone. You can control what you can control, but you also miss out on opportunities to grow as a person. And, I remember first year post pandemic, everybody going back to school, and there was such an issue with the hoods. It was everybody wanted their hood up. Everybody wanted a mask on, even when it wasn't required. And what I've also seen pre and post pandemic, if that's what we're comparing, is I walk into an auditorium in front of 650 kids, and almost every single one of them is on their phone. And they're not interacting with each other, which is a shame. It's you have so many different people that are around you right now, but you're watching some guy in a Ferrari. It's so strange.
Who doesn't know you, you don't know them, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's what do they call that? A parasocial relationship where you feel like you relate to this person or you want what this person has, but they just do it for ad revenue,
My older daughter is a school teacher, so I get to hang out. I go and do some stuff at that school, and I get to hang out with these middle schoolers, and it gives me hope when I hang out with them, because there's so many cool things that they're thinking about and trying to do in their world. They want to have an impact, what you said earlier. People want to give back. So, what are some of the positive things that you think this generation coming up is? What do you see that's cool? We've talked about some of the downside, but what's the cool side?
From what I've seen, there is a lot of acceptance in being different. I'm a huge advocate of diversity is our strength. And, the broader the base, the higher the point of freedom. And I feel because of social media, we can learn so fast. I've seen kids that are in sixth grade, doing insane coding. They are so curious, and there is freedom to create. It's you can look up a YouTube video, or you can watch a TikToker teach you how to code. And that's really cool. There is a lot of creative expression. I have a whole drawer upstairs of notes and art and gifts that kids have given me over the years, and digital art, which is really cool. Have written me on social media, just how impactful that type of connection is. And I think sort of going back to the point of being different is okay now. We have so many different subgroups of kids that feel like they do belong and that they don't need to hide. I'm not necessarily seeing you got to be cool or you're out. That's so 20 years ago.
I'm also wondering, I think we're able to talk about things today in today's world that we didn't talk about years ago. Family secrets were family secrets, things that people experienced, they were kept inside. And so is that am I right about that? Do you feel like there's a sort of an openness to talk about some of these hard things that kids are experiencing, or is it still something that people are very afraid to talk about?
Even though there is a little bit more openness, there still is that fear of, if I do talk about this, there is a risk of being rejected. There's a risk of my safety. Because at least for me, what I tell kids all the time is we have this phrase in our household, which is kind of what happens in this household stays in this household. And we grew up upper middle class and had everything that I needed and everything that I wanted. And my dad had a high powered job, and externally I looked awesome, but internally I was suffering. And that illusion of everything is perfect was very much a mask. And I see kids still doing that. But again, there are kids that are brave and will take the first step and be hey, I'm going through this. And then there's so many that will happily come out of the woodwork and be me too, me too.
So we've talked a lot about connection, or the theme of connection and community. So what can the community do to sort of lift this up, elevate it?
I mean, I guess just continuing the normalization of the conversation. You don't need to be in a crisis to get help. That's the number one thing. You don't need to be on the verge of taking your own life or hurting another person before somebody intervenes. And it's if there's one thing that I see successful with schools and organizations, is that they have framework of checking in with students almost daily. And not the whisper hey, how's it going? It's hey, how was your night last night? And it makes it okay to be actually, I had a really bad night last night, but I'm really glad to be here. And instead of having a hush-hush conversation of oh, you need to go to guidance, it's okay, well, I'm here if you need anything. And if you need to take a step out during my class, please feel free. It keeps it light. And keeping that conversation light keeps it helps normalize it.
I was in another conversation, a whole other different group of people, but one of the mantras was, say how are you and mean it. we say it as a sort of a drive-by greeting, but really stand still, look somebody in the eye, and how are you? And it is, lather, rinse, repeat. It's not a one time we're good now. It's I have to keep checking in.
I think about the young people in our communities and their capacity to build connection, right? As grown adults, we get to choose a lot of people in our circles, right? We can choose who's in there, who's not in there, generally. But from a young person perspective, it's classmates, friends, and most of the adults look like either teachers, parents, family members, or parents and family members of our friends. So any advice to those people who may be looking to help our young people build connection? If you're that mother, father, and a friend, your son or daughter's friend comes to you and discloses information, they're not necessarily looking for formal support, but an open place to have dialogue. And I think kids sometimes have limited circle. So any advice for adults not in the direct helping profession that can make kids feel like it's a welcoming environment, similar to what schools are doing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of if a child or just a person comes up to you and they need to vent or they need to talk about something, it's better to ask than do, right? So it's like I do this with my friends. Like, I'm like, do you just want to vent or do you want feedback? And they'll say, like, I want to vent. Like, I don't want to hear any type of solution other than like
Don't put your helpful goodness on it.
no. And what's wild is when you give them the choice, by the end of it, they're like, so what do you think? And it's like, oh, so you wanted my feedback. Okay.
Yeah, you almost kind of, I think, have to build that relational credibility. Like, we talk about it a lot. Like, if you have that friend that only calls you when everything is wrong and you see that name come up on your phone, it's like, oh no, they're in the middle of it. But if you have that friend that sometimes calls you with great news, sometimes calls you just to see how your day's going, like, then you have a more full relationship that when you're in the trenches, you have the positive experiences to look at and say, like, you were with me, not just in hard times, but through the enjoyable parts of my experience in life. So I think, like, building that with people, it doesn't feel sometimes like you're doing work to build portions of the positive part of the relationship, but it's necessary in order to build trust when people are in a bad way.
Well, thank you, Kristen. Thank you for the work you do. This is awesome. And thank you for being on the podcast.
It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope that you enjoyed hearing from people who are strengthening our communities every day. Search for and follow us on your preferred streaming platform to hear future episodes.